Hello, everyone, and welcome to TCR Community Talks, the show where we're going to explain a little bit about Vampire the Masquerade, meet some amazing creators, and talk to the people behind Bloodlines 2. Today, with us, we have Leticinios. Am I saying that right?
Hi. It's a
I
little bit
tried.
tricky, but yeah, you got it right. Leticinios.
Great.
Or
I
just call me
practiced.
Leticia. Yeah.
Leticia. Perfect. We also have Kai, the GM,
Hello, everybody.
and Alex Skidmore.
Hello. Hey, Josh.
And so I thought it would be a good start, just kind of introducing yourselves and what you do, just so everyone at home knows what they're up to. Let's start with you, Alex. So you're project creative director on Bloodlines 2. What would you say you do on a day-to-day, except for, I guess, putting out all of these wonderful diaries?
What do I do day to day? So it depends where we are on the project, but at the moment, playing it a lot as other people and sorting through triaging bugs. So deciding we're going to fix this. This actually isn't a bug. Please don't fix it. Things like that. But just finding the game, getting the game done.
Yeah, good feeling. Leticia, introduce yourself and where we can find you.
Well, I'm a full-time content creator. I do a lot of videos, live streams, podcasts, stuff like that about World of Darkness in general. I love playing tabletop RPGs. I mean, don't we all? And I'm also the community ambassador for the Brazilian World of Darkness publisher Galapagos. So yeah, that's a little bit of what I do.
Awesome. And Kai, the GM.
Hi, yeah, so as my name implies, I am a proud forever GM. I run a lot of World of Darkness games. Main thing I do is I make short videos about World of Darkness lore and the themes of World of Darkness on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And I also write for World of Darkness, not in an official capacity, but as a rabid fan. I published the Chronicle collection Fear, Fangs, and Fury on the Storyteller's Vault, which brings the three 5th edition lines together for an overarching story. So I just love World of Darkness, and I love introducing people to it.
Yeah, nice. I think we've all found a very strong appreciation for Vampire the Masquerade and the World of Darkness. And I suppose one of the reasons why we do these is because some people may not have spent as much time with it as us. So I was wondering, and this is an open question to anyone who wants to jump in, where do you normally start when you're introducing someone to Vampire the Masquerade? Like, how do you describe and explain it if you're telling them about it for the first time?
I think it depends whether the person knows tabletop RPGs or don't. If they're already familiar, I begin with something like it's a little bit different than the average experience because it's something so profound and I love it so much, so different. You have vampires as the main characters of the stories you're telling. And if it's someone that doesn't know tabletop RPGs, I think I begin with the role playing, the stuff about you jumping in a character and understand who are the person that you are like trying to perform.
I think as someone who introduces a lot of people to it who have already played another kind of RPG and are looking to expand what they're playing, I focus on the things that Vampire the Masquerade is good at when compared to other role-playing games. Of course, Dungeons and Dragons is most people's entry into the hobby. And so I emphasize that it is really big on the political struggles. And I think people respond to that a lot because a lot of times people don't have a firm grasp on how mechanics can encourage specific kinds of play. And World of Darkness, I think, just does a better job than any other game line of really emphasizing a politically complex world that you're going to be diving into. And I find that that's a big selling point for a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure. And Alex, I suppose we have a slightly less tabletop oriented perspective because we came into it from video games, right?
Yeah, and you have to, people go, what game are you working on? And I was working on Bloodlines 2. Well, what's that about? And then sort of the spin really is that it's a game where you get to play, monsters. You get to be bloodthirsty vampires, and that's okay, right? You can do things that otherwise would be very much frowned upon in everyday life. And just selling people the setting, right? Like people will think, oh, it's vampires. Is it glittery skin, or is it castles and sort of all fantasy things? It's like no, just the whole thing of World of Darkness or Vampire the Masquerade is just what if vampires were real? Everything else is just our world, except for what if vampires were real? Just that one little thing. And what I love about the IP is it takes that very seriously, and then it just rationalizes everything around it. I.e., for us to understand them, they would have had to create a whole system of being able to hide themselves, which is the Masquerade. And then sort of once you get people on that, they're like, oh, this is very intriguing. So it's a bit different to if I just know vampires from, say, Dracula or or Twilight, as many people do. And nothing wrong with those IPs, but that it very much takes itself seriously and follows that thread of what if vampires were real, which I love about it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, we've I suppose tried to include a lot of all of the different things that vampires can do through the powers and their weaknesses as well. But I was wondering to kind of describe how this world interacts with the modern world. If you could talk about some of your favorite vampire folklore, I guess that includes like the general, well, I suppose the entire literature that includes vampires, but also VTM. Yeah, does anyone have like a favorite piece of folklore that really draws them in?
I think something that fascinates me in BTM specifically is the Tzimisce clan, and their extremely firm feeling on traditions and customs. Where if you visit a Tzimisce vampire, you're guaranteed 3 nights of comfort and safety within the best room in the house, even if you're kicking them out of their own room. I really like the idea that there are these customs or traditions that you can manipulate in order to maneuver your way through a vampire world. And even beyond the Tzimisce, the Camarilla in general is all about traditions and customs that are just sticking around because no one's really looked at them with a firm eye in hundreds of years. I'm just fascinated by the idea of these different customs and traditions that vampires have been following for centuries, and something that you can manipulate either if you're at the top of vampire society and you're using these traditions to keep people down, or if you're a relative newcomer and are taking advantage of the things that people are just so set in their ways that they can't account for a random variable. I think it makes it interesting no matter where you are within the vampire world.
The simple idea to use the things that could kill a vampire to kill a vampire, the different ideas of how you can harm a vampire, I think is a very cool thing to think about, to stop to use in your chronicles. I'm excited to see it in Bloodlines too, like a stake in the heart. That's something that came from stories of people raising from the dead, and then people would stab their hearts to, to try to stop they from becoming vampires. Just something very interesting.
Yeah, that's a very good point. We I think we put that out in is it the Masquerade? Yes, it's the Masquerade Dev Diary. We had the video of that. Yeah. How do you feel about the folkloric things that we've included, Alex?
Yeah, well, part of the fun challenge, you have a dev team. Not all of them obviously are that familiar with VTM, depending on their job. So quite a lot of my job will be telling people, no, it's meant to be like that. I remember a bug in the database where fire had no reflection in water. And then someone went, well, vampires don't have reflections. And so it's a bit more complex in VTM. All the tropes that we know aren't necessarily true. I like the twist that in VTM, a stake through the heart only paralyzes them. And it's meant to be that they've put out there essentially as propaganda that it will kill them, so that if they are caught by a human, the human will stake them, and instead of dying, they'll then go to sleep, and then hopefully their friends will find them and
Yeah.
awaken them. So I love that whole twist of the things we know about vampires through folklore are actually within VTM propaganda that vampires have put out there for us. So we have to question them all. And I also like that each of the clans kind of has little bits of that. So it's like, yeah, all right. So they have reflections, but like the Sombra, if they won't show up on or properly in video cameras, or if they touch digital things, it messes up. And then there's also the sort of, going back to that folklore, they have their own folklore. So there's the whole thing of Cain and Abel, and the first vampire is Cain who killed Abel, and it still isn't clear to me. I asked the Paradox people, is that true? And it's like, well, it might be, it might not be. Vampires believe it, or some of the vampires believe it. So yeah, it's a bit meta even with its own folklore, right? What it does with the folklore we know and twists it, and then the folklore inside it, and whether that's true or not is a thing you then question yourself. So yeah, good fun. all the expectations of a vampire, and then building a video game with those and bringing people along for the journey.
Yeah. Is there anything that people like to include in their, I guess, tabletop games? Like something, because I know I definitely do it. There's something that I always include whenever I'm playing. It's normally definitely someone's walking around a little bit dazed because of mesmerism or something like that. I always enjoy that. But yeah, is there a go-to for anyone?
I love the garlic, the garlic hate, because it sounds so silly. Like vampires can't stand garlic, and then out of nowhere, the GM can put like a garlic somewhere and just like.
There's a vampire hunter around when there's garlic
Yeah.
around. Yeah.
I really like to include the concepts of sympathetic magic that kind of crops up in the blood sorcery stuff in Vampire the Masquerade. Because when you were all talking about the stake through the heart, that made me think of there's an ability in Vampire the Masquerade where you can turn your heart to stone, so that
Yeah.
when a stake comes at you, it just breaks and shatters. But there's also a note that says through sympathetic magic, this also makes the person who just turned their heart to stone very cold hearted and emotionless and closed off. And I like that about the Vampire the Masquerade magic system because it doesn't try to make it make sense. It doesn't try to make it science. It just says, yeah, this is magic. It's not clear how it works. It's not clear why it works. But these cascading magical effects just happen, and no one's entirely sure how they work, which I really like. I think a lot of urban fantasy tries to say, well, you call it magic, but it's just really advanced science. So actually, this all makes perfect sense if you break it down. And a big theme in World of Darkness is no, none of this makes sense. This is all crazy, and we're still hundreds and hundreds of years from figuring it out.
Well, in our game, we have a character, a Tremere blood scientist, Safia, and she's trying to figure it out. So they're trying to figure out how vampirism works. They don't fully know, right? The vampires in the world of VTM, so they have sort of what they believe is why they are how they are. But that some of them are trying to scientifically figure it out through experiments, etc. Why does this happen when you expose someone to this and not when you do it to this? But they haven't got the answers yet, so therefore we can't.
No, it is a little bit funny that they've been dead for hundreds of years and they're like, well, it's our best guess. Maybe garlic, who knows? Well, I think we've announced that there will be some clans in the game, shock horror, and I'm sure people are looking forward to hearing about more way in the future when we do that. But for you three, do you have a favorite? And I suppose why? And this is going to be very telling when we get to Alex, I suppose. I don't actually know the answer, so maybe there's a bias there that we're about to discover.
I love all my vampire babies equally.
There you go. Very political. Well done. You could be a great vampire.
Well, I love the Ventrus. I'm very excited to play as a Ventru and on Bloodlines too. And I love the clan because you can play as someone, a social character, right? The Ventrus can be very social, and you don't need to be the social type of character to just ask for things, be sexy and kind and charming. You can just demand. You can be the person who just like, I want this, give me, because I deserve that. Simple as that. And I think it's my clan of heart. I love the Ventrus. I'm very excited to play on in Bloodlines too.
I also really like the Ventru. My
Oh,
first
okay.
character is probably going to be a
Yes!
Ventru as well. I remember my first vampire game that I was ever a player in. I was looking over the different vampires, and I was thinking, so many of my friends were being like, oh, I want this tragic monster. I want someone who's going to be desperate to find a cure, desperate to protect their family. And I was like, no, I can be a nice guy in real life. I want to be a jerk. I want to be the kind of vampire that revels in being evil and manipulative and having no lines that they are not willing to cross. So my venture was actually a guy who had been working in the mailroom of a major company and figured out that the person who was running the company was a venture vampire and then blackmailed her into turning him. He had a very tragic backstory, tragic ending that was filled with his own hubris. He was doomed from the start, which I loved. So I really love the Ventru clan, and I also really like the Banu Hakim, just because the idea of a vampire who's going to actually have those lines and say, we're introducing justice and accountability to this world where everyone's stabbing each other in the back is really interesting to me. I was very excited when I found out the Banu Hakim were going to be included in some way in Bloodlines too. So I'm excited to check that out as well.
I think Banu Hakim will also be my second choice. Like my first playthrough will be Ventru, and then Banu Hakim for the same reason. Yeah.
Very nice. Well, I'm just gonna say, Tremere, I'm just so happy that I get to throw blood knives. I'm just like, I'm fully out there.
I'm leaving.
Tremere is a lot of fun to watch because you can have, Ventru come in. They can do a lot of cool things, like their abilities are all sort of sight based, because they're using their eyes to mesmerize. A cool thing they can do is possess someone and then see through their eyes, but therefore their abilities still work because they're sight based. So you can possess someone, walk around to someone else, and then go, kill yourself, and they'll drop dead. But you were still, however, far away. So it's all very cool. And it's very manipulative. Whereas you watch Tremere and it just makes this bloody mess. There's blood on the wall, floor. There's heads and bits. It's just so it's a lot of fun to watch. We had two people play the same bit of the game the other day, and one very neatly they played Banu Hakim. Everyone neatly, all these neat bodies all around. Another person, it's just absolute carnage. And it's okay. They were Tremere.
That's cool. I guess the follow-up game will be the cleanup crew for the Tremere.
Oh, I would play that.
Power washing sim, but for vampires. So one thing I'm really keen to do is to kind of help people find ways into the World of Darkness community. And maybe this is for people further down the rabbit hole, deeper in the iceberg. But I was wondering if Leticia and Kai, you had a favorite VTM meme.
I think the Tremere hating is just my favorite meme. Like I just did when you said, "Oh, I love the Tremere." No, that's not it. It's so fun to have something that everyone understands why we're making this joke, why we are hating the Tremere. So it's just my favorite to making fun of the Tremere. It's a joke that never gets old. It never gets old.
I'm sorry to keep stealing Leticia's answers, but the Tremere hating is also one of my favorites. One of my earliest TikToks that I made about Vampire is someone had commented on one of my TikToks. It was like, "Oh, the Tremere are magic users, so they must get along with mages, right?" And so my response was, "Good rule of thumb. If your question is how do the Tremere get along with ... the answer is badly." Like, I just love that they have managed to piss off everyone in the setting, not just vampires, but everybody across the entire World of Darkness lore. Yeah, the Tremere hate is very, very fun to dive into.
Yes, yes.
That explains a lot for me, because I wondered if there was a prejudice against it. Because Lou Graham hates the Tremere, right? The main, she's really rude about them, and if you go in as Tremere, she's sort of rude and then catches herself, because obviously you're an elder vampire for one thing, but there's still, compared to how she talks to Ventru, I did wonder why are the Ventru, why do the Tremere get talked about that way? I wondered if it's a particular ilk of our narrative director, but no, it's because obviously it's a big thing. Tremere are the
Yeah, that's
universally
something.
trolled.
Yeah, that's something I'm really excited to see when I play as a Tremere. Also, like how the people around you will hate you just for being a Tremere. I think it will be one of the highlights as playing as a Tremere to have to impersonate this character, Fire, that people are hating her just because. Maybe, I don't know.
Well, and how they get on with each other, because pretty much every clan you can be, there is at least one other vampire of that in the cast, sometimes several. And it's very interesting how they each react to each other. I also find it interesting when you have more than one, so we've got more than one Bruja. So say for example we've got Katsumi and Benny, and you can tell they're both Bruja, but they're very different points on that Bruja spectrum. So it's interesting the different expressions of the clans through the different cast members, and then obviously how you can then lean on those spectrums yourself as you're making your dialogue choices.
Yeah. I guess that's a good thing for us all to point out. Like, how do you each try and make? Obviously, there's the big archetypes of what your Ventru would look like, or your Tremere, and how everyone hates them. Um, but obviously, each individual character is different on that scale and under those archetypes. And I was wondering how you think about that when you're either creating characters or just imagining the world.
I think one of the things I like to play off of, specifically with subverting the Nosferatu idea, because the Nosferatu are usually thought of as the big tech people, the ones that know how to manipulate social media and the internet from the shadows and all sorts of other things. I like to, when in my games, I kind of change it around a little bit where the Nosferatu are a little bit more like the mob and like a really dedicated family over everything else faction. Because we see that like really important solidarity amongst a lot of the clans, especially clans that are ostracized, like the Tremere and the Nosferatu. And so I've run games at conventions where I have pre-generated Nosferatu, and I've had people say to me, "This is the first time I played a Nosferatu that doesn't have 4 points in computers and a mastery over technology." And it was interesting looking at them as like a mob leg breaker, and that overall dedication to clan overriding their personal selfish aims. So that's one angle that I really like to take with the Nosferatu specifically.
Nice.
I don't think I have something specific that I do for my characters, but I think I always try to play something different than what I have already played. Like maybe I'm playing a Ventru again, but if I did a Ventru that it has this political background and there's this so scheming and stuff like that, the next time I'll play it, I'll try to make someone who is more kind even and like manipulative, but like a good person on the outside or something like that. I always try to think different forms to play the same clan even, but all my characters in general. I think finding different tones every time is something that makes VTM really refreshing.
Yeah. I think your comment about the Nosferatu in particular just reminded me straight up of Tolly. I think he's a little bit different. He's very sassy. He's got his own spirit. He's my favorite character. I definitely have a bias, but yeah, that's
He's Nosferatu and proud, isn't he? As in,
yeah, definitely.
because that's the interesting thing. Because a lot of these characters, when we were designing, we're thinking what they were before they were embraced, before they turned into a vampire, and then how that then affected them. But even before they were embraced, they kind of had tendencies of the clan they were going to become. You know, in some ways, I think that's the sort of theory. It's a bit, in some ways, self-fulfilling. Like if you are expressing the traits of Bruja, then it's more likely you're going to be embraced by a Bruja because they're going to see you as sort of, you know, like, as it were. But yeah, we have for Nosferatu. Is it a gift or a curse? Is almost the question. So we've got two Nosferatu. There's the two that we've definitely talked about. So I can't talk about any others. So there's Willem and Tolly. Willem sees it as a curse, hides themselves away, and is absolutely ashamed of the fact that they're Nosferatu, and can't even effectively feed because they're so crippled by it. They need help. They need sort of blood donated to them to feed. Whereas Tolly is the other way. It's like, yeah, I'm Nosferatu and proud. Is one of the few characters we meet quite often in public. Is Tolly, because they you know, people just walk past him and they just go, oh, who's that freak? But they don't think he's a vampire. Because you get a lot of strange people, you know, in any city, let alone probably Seattle in a park in the middle of the night. But again, it's very interesting. For one character, it's a gift. For one character, it's a curse. So when you give someone a clan, it's almost a little what if of how will they react to that? How will that amplify their traits or push them one way or another, which is pretty cool when creating characters.
Yeah. Well, Out and About Tolly is a great segue into this because as we've recently delved into, we've talked about how you will interact with the Masquerade, scare people, eat people, drink blood, get caught, all of that great stuff. But I would like to hear it from each of your perspectives. Like, what is the Masquerade of Vampire the Masquerade? And how do you think about using it when you're playing or writing or making games?
I think of the Masquerade as the vampire's eternal lesson. Like they have discovered time and time again, when the humans find out about us, it doesn't go well. And so I think it should define everything that vampires do, because they know that the most important thing over everything else is maintaining the Masquerade. And so I've used it as a story beat to both punish my players and also give them an opportunity. Because I once did a game that was basically like the Masquerade is in danger of being completely blown apart in Boston, and these are the 5 humans that could potentially blow it apart. One of them's trying to flee on a plane. One of them is in the mayor's office. One of them is trying to make their way out via like the interstate. And I gave my players the option, was like, you have to track these people down and end them, or the Masquerade is over in Boston. And so I think it's a great way to give people a quest in that way. And then also the perspective of you've got to clean up your mess. Because at one point I had a player who was jumping from roof to roof with someone on their back trying to get them to a hospital. Plenty of people saw it. It was an obvious Masquerade violation. And so I had an elder vampire come in and say, well, the best explanation I could come up with for social media is that this was a promotional stunt for a production of Hunchback of Notre Dame. So congratulations, you're putting on a production of Hunchback of Notre Dame, and you've got to convince people that was the idea the whole time. So I think that the Masquerade should be omnipresent. You got to make sure that the players are always thinking about it, and whenever it gets violated, there's a whole story right there.
Nice.
Yeah, I think Kai described it perfectly. You can make the Masquerade a huge plot point every time when you play, when you were storytelling, you can make, as you said, people breaking the masquerade something for the players to go and try to fix, or simply something to learn learn about the masquerade while you were a fledgling or something like that. So yeah, you describe it perfectly.
Totally. Yeah, and I suppose if anyone wants to learn about how it works in Bloodlines 2, then we've written a lot. We've written, and there's even videos that you can find on the Bloodlines 2 website. So before we go, I would love to give Leticia and Kai, please tell us about the content that you're making, and any specific projects that you're working on right now that you would love to share with people. Leticia, please.
Okay. I mostly do short videos, TikTok, Instagram, stuff like that. Silly stuff just for us to laugh a little and think about the vampires that we love. But I also am doing right now a big LARP in Brazil, the biggest LARP in São Paulo. So if anyone watching this wants to play LARP in Brazil, please check our project. LARPing is one of amazing form of playing Vampire the Masquerade, and yeah,
What's the LARP called?
Cursed Knights. We play a medieval setting in Europe, and it's completely insane because we're all like these ancient vampires. I play a Salubri Queen, so it's a very hard work.
Yeah, I'll be excited to see the third eye.
Yeah.
That'd be really cool. Sweet, thank you. Yeah, what are you working on, Kai?
I'm always making new videos about Vampire the Masquerade, Hunt of the Reckoning, Werewolf the Apocalypse, all the World of Darkness stuff on TikTok and YouTube and Instagram. I'm KyTheGM in all of those places. I'm also, if anyone watching is in the Chicago area, I'm putting together a Chicago mega game where I will have one table meeting one night that's vampires, one table meeting another night that is hunters, and another table meeting another night that's werewolves. And they'll all be set in Chicago and they'll all be impacting each other. So if that's something you want to get in on, you could message me on any of those platforms. And then one non-World of Darkness thing that I'm doing, I'm making a podcast right now with my friend Kayla where we react to each episode of the anime Delicious in Dungeon because we're both very big fans of that. That's going to be coming out on my YouTube channel in a few weeks, probably next month, because I got to edit everything. But that's going to be called It's Ready, a Delicious in Dungeon podcast. And you can find that on my YouTube channel. And I'll also be posting it on the Apple Podcast app and Spotify and everything else.
Sweet. Alex, is there anything you want to point people to? Like, I know we've all spent a lot of time and effort trying to share cool things about the game in the Dev Diaries, but yeah, is there anything you want to tell people before we go?
Well, our next Dev Diary. Can I talk about that?
Oh yeah.
So, because we've already talked about one of the factions that you will face against, because you sort of naturally align with the Camarilla faction. You know, through the campaign, you get the role of sheriff. You naturally align because it fits what you need to do. You know what Fires wants and your character motivation. So whether you're doing it, you know, and working within against it, or whether you're just, you know, actually, oh no, I truly believe in the Camarilla, that's up to you. Yes, we've talked about the Anarch faction, but the next Dev Diary is about we have a Hunter faction in the game. So it's the IAO, the Information Awareness Office, I believe that's the
Yes,
right?
I could never remember. I know it's the IAO, but it's Information.
Yeah, we would
Awareness
just
Office.
always just say IAO.
Yeah.
So they're very interesting.
Oh
They're
my
quite,
god.
Oh,
they're quite cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
My favorite World of Darkness.
Amazing.
And again, they give you another view on the world of darkness. How do mortals think of because these are mortals who know of vampires, but they don't know everything that we know about vampires. I mean, we gave them little ticks like you know, some of them use They know enough that fire, thermal weapons, fire kills vampires. They've figured that one out. And they have the IAO have like really cool weapons, probably the toughest weapons you fight against, because that's their main shtick is their sort of weaponry. But we have some that use thermal battens, so battens with almost like effectively like heat elements, like kettle elements or whatever, to burn you on the end of them. And they do a thing if they're blocking damage from you, they do it like a cross because they think that'll help.
I didn't
Right.
notice.
Yeah, so
Oh my goodness, yeah.
because they think it'll help. Right, holding up a cross to you, it doesn't, stop fire. Although the fact that it's thermal does. So if you punch them whilst they're doing that, that's going to hurt because it's going to burn your hands. So yeah, definitely check out that Dev Diary, and then yeah, there is still a fair chunk to talk about after that, but that's the next thing that we're getting out there.
Amazing. Cool. Well, thank you everyone for watching this video and these interviews in general. And unfortunately, I've got to say goodbye, or maybe good night, because I'm going to be moving on to a different job. But I've been so inspired by the creativity and the enthusiasm of the Bloodlines 2 and World of Darkness community. And if you are interested in following me, I'm definitely going to be playing Bloodlines 2 when it comes out for sure. My YouTube channel, Strange Adventures. But aside from that, maybe closer to launch, we'll see each other again. That'd be really fun. I'd love that. But yes, until next time, thank you everyone for watching, and goodbye.